Overpopulation and pollution will gradually destroy Earth in the not-too-distant future. Scientists looked toward Mars in search of a new home and sent unmanned probes with algae that was bioengineered to flourish there. This alga creates an atmosphere for people to breathe for 20 years, but one day, all of a sudden, oxygen levels start to decline. All nations pooled their resources in an effort to launch the first manned mission to Mars out of a desperate desire to learn why. The crew shuttles to the high-orbit space station for a low-gravity launch to start a 6-month journey in the Mars 1 ship, which is too large to launch from the planet's surface. With pilot and Commander Bauman, Chief Science Officer Chantilas, co-pilot Santon, Mechanical Systems Engineer Gallagher, Bioengineer Birchinall, and Terraforming Specialist Pettingill, this crew is comprised of the brightest minds in science. AME, a multitasking robot that will serve as their navigator on Mars' surface, is also traveling with them. A nuclear power cell powered by helium keeps AME running for a while. The crew comes up with various activities to keep themselves occupied over the course of the next 6 months when they are not working. Chantilas frequently discusses philosophy and religion, claiming that he needs answers to some important questions because science has let him down. Gallagher enjoys playing the field with Bauman and won't think twice to walk on her while they're both in the shower while pretended it was an accident. Additionally, he is in charge of the diagnostic checks for AME prior to launch. Gallagher decides to play a practical joke on Pettingill after Pettingill requests a demonstration of the robot and wants to see it in action. He switches AME from navigation to military mode, hands it a marker, and commands it to attack his friend. AME then quickly stabs Pettingill to demonstrate how deadly it is. They eventually grow so bored up there that Gallagher and Birchinall start brewing alcohol in the lab. When Bauman learns about it, she reprimands them at first, but eventually she joins them, and the entire team ends up drinking together. The ship finally approaches Mars orbit on day 182. When a gamma burst suddenly hits them, the crew is searching for HB1, the automated habitat where the probes were supposed to be growing the alga. While she monitors the system and the crew waits for the burst to pass, Commander Bauman orders the remainder of the crew to the safe area. They find the main power unit is offline a short while later, so they must depart for Mars right away and search for HB1 on foot. When the crew is prepared, Bauman tries to start the extension vehicle's auto-launch system, but the lack of power prevents it from working, so she is forced to stay behind and launch it manually. Because of the vehicle's clumsy launch and Santon's difficulty landing, he is forced to remove their landing gear and AME. Even though he is able to deploy the airbags, the car still rolls down a hill and sustains significant damage when it lands on Mars. Bauman discovers electrical fires in various areas of the ship in the meantime, but the bursts destroy the automatic fire extinguishers. To put out even the smallest fire, she quickly grabs the manual extinguisher, straps herself to the emergency evacuation unit, and then opens a hatch. In this manner, the vacuum removes the fire from the ship. She then works to restore the main power unit. Chantila was hurt when he landed on Mars, and the crew had to assist him in getting out of the vehicle. In addition to the broken radio and science package, they lack the means to navigate the planet and locate HB1 without getting lost without AME. They will be able to find the right route if Gallagher compares some panoramic images he has that the probes once sent with the terrain. Chantilas asks the crew to leave him there after considering all of his philosophical concerns and accepting his fate. Even if HB1 has a medical unit, he won't survive in time because his spleen has ruptured and there is severe internal bleeding. As the crew bids farewell, Chantila confesses that he is relieved that they at least got to see Mars. AME emerges from the landing gear nearby and launches a drone to locate the crew. Bauman fixes the ship's communication system, but she is unable to contact the guys because their radio isn't working. She then uses the scanners to locate HB1, but she discovers some negative information. She is forced to call Houston and let them know the crew won't make it. Burchinal is shocked to see there are no signs of the alga when the crew starts to move under the intense sun. Even if it all died, there should be some traces. When they eventually arrive at HB1, they find it to be completely destroyed. Because the buildings were built to withstand even tornadoes, this couldn't have been caused by the weather, proving that something else took place. The guys are forced to accept their fate because there is no water, no air, and no food. The crew talks about the people they left behind at home, as there are only 16 minutes of oxygen left. Santon chooses to reflect while standing close to a cliff edge and notes that at least his piloting abilities cannot be held accountable for this. However, Pettingill still demands that he take some accountability. This starts a fight, and Pettingill hits Santon, sending him flying off the cliff. Pettingill returns to the group and informs them that Santon took his own life. When their oxygen tanks run out, Gallagher decides to take his final breath by opening his helmet. Gallagher is shocked to learn that he can breathe just fine. While they are unable to explain why, Pettingill and Burchinal confirm they can breathe by imitating him. Houston notifies Bauman that the ship's orbit will fail in 31 hours, but that they will assist her in taking off before that time. Due to the failure of ignition systems, Bauman is dubious. Once more searching AAB-1 for anything useful, the guys discover a radio, but it's also broken. Burchinal is now aware that they should search for the small rover Earth sent in 1997 because it should have a radio as well. Since they need to travel 4 kilometers and it will soon be dark, they decide to leave in the morning to avoid getting too cold. They start a fire with the last of the rocket fuel from HB1 so that AME can finally locate them. When Gallagher inspects the robot, he sees that it is fairly damaged, but the navigational device is still functional, so he should stop AMEA and remove it before it breaks as well. When Amy hears this, she reacts angrily and pushes all the men away when they attempt to turn it off. When Burchinal attempts to hit it with a pipe, AME chops the object into tiny fragments before striking the target, breaking one of his ribs. Then AME flees, meeting up with its drone along the way. The robot jammed the transmitters to prevent them from knowing where it is, and Gallagher explains to the others that AME is using guerrilla tactics and will return later to kill them one by one. Houston helps Bauman fix the ignition systems in the morning, but she tells them she'll first try to save the crew before returning. As a joke to claim the area in the name of humanity, the guys get up and go to the bathroom. After that, they search for the old rover. Gallagher fixes the radio's frequency to match the new one as soon as they locate it, but despite their best efforts, they are unable to get in touch with Bauman. Bauman is prepared to depart for Earth after 2 hours of futile attempts, and Gallagher is about to discard the radio when Houston picks up the rover's frequency and connects it to the ship. When the guys do get a chance to speak with Bauman, she listens to their entire ordeal and assures them that she will find a way to save them. A short while later, Bauman contacts the guys once more to let them know about Cosmos, a 30-year-old Russian rock probe that had previously failed to launch. They'll have to make the necessary repairs, but this is their only opportunity, and they only have 19 hours before Bauman must return to Earth. Bauman will be in a blackout on the dark side and won't speak to them again until later because she needs to continue working on some repairs. Bauman is reminded of the time they almost kissed a few weeks ago when Gallagher tells her he's glad to hear her voice again before hanging up. The guys start walking toward the probe without realizing AME is following them. Pettingill suddenly notices movement in the distance, but the others are unable to see it and order him to keep going. A group of strange insects start to move in the same direction close by. Later, Bauman asks Gallagher to turn off his communications, so they can speak privately after checking on the crew. She apologizes and tells him that there is only space for 2 people in the probe before returning to her work. When Burchinal's body starts to feel weak due to the broken rib, Gallagher doesn't yet inform the other people about the situation and instead focuses on assisting Burchinal in walking. The group must hide inside a gap in a hill when night falls because a large ice storm is headed in their direction. The storm makes it difficult for AMEE to get closer. Gallagher finally admits that only 2 of them can make it back as the guys talk about how little time they have left to find the probe. Pettingill doesn't accept his offer to stay behind because he believes Gallagher suspects him of killing Santon, but the man himself volunteers to do so. Burchinal interjects, admitting that he doesn't trust him either and reiterating his desire to leave Pettingill behind. After a few hours, Bauman gets a message from Houston telling her to return because there is no way the crew could have survived the storm. She tries in vain to get in touch with the crew. It turns out that Pettingill took the radio and fled after Gallagher and Burchinal nodded off in order to reach the probe first. Now that he is outside and vulnerable, AMEE sneaks up on him and instantly kills him. As soon as Burchinal and Gallagher notice this on the suit communications, they exit the cave and go get the radio. Burchinal is startled to see alga on their way to Pettingill's body, and he wonders why it only grows here. While Burchinal examines the body more closely and is unaware that the bugs are operating inside the suit, Gallagher retrieves the radio and attempts to get in touch with Bauman. Burchinal attempts to cut the suit open with a torch lighter, but this sets the tiny aliens on fire. Finally noticed, Burchinal determines they are nematodes that have been consuming the alga as he captures 2 of them. This explains why the plant started suddenly going extinct. The nematodes consume it and produce oxygen in return, just like trees would. The men discover more alga as they continue to walk. Due to his broken rib, Burchinal starts to leak blood from his mouth. This attracts the attention of the bugs, who then attack him by gnawing through his suit. Burchinal throws his suit to Gallagher as he accepts his fate so that he can have more room for the journey. In order for Earth to study the bugs and create cleaner air, he also gives him the tube containing the bugs. Burchinal then waits for the insects to cover him before lighting the torch and bringing the entire colony of tiny aliens down with him. From the ship, Bauman observes everything and contacts Gallagher to see how he is. Gallagher acknowledges that he is prepared to give up after describing what occurred, but Bauman persuades him otherwise by emphasizing that he must not let the crew's sacrifices go in vain. Gallagher gathers himself and runs until he finds the probe, which he starts working on right away under Bauman's direction. Unfortunately, the probe's battery is dead, so Gallagher is stuck here even though the system is functional. Gallagher tells Bauman that he misses her and that he regrets not kissing her because he believes this to be the end. Bauman nods in agreement and starts preparing to go back while crying. Gallagher then recognizes that AMEE's drone has batteries that he could steal. He lets AMEE get as close as it wants while starting to set up a trap using the probe itself. Gallagher avoids the robot's attack as it is about to go for his heart and then lets go of an airbag filled with fuel, trapping AMEE so that he can light it on fire. The drone is about to crash into AMEA and cause it to explode when Gallagher rushes to remove the battery, just as AMEE activates its self-destruct system. The probe is then fixed by Gallagher, who then launches it well aboard to pursue Bauman, who is about to depart for Earth. Sadly, the probe runs out of power in the middle of the journey, but Bauman notices it and uses the spacewalk rope to jump off the ship and grab the probe. Gallagher is unconscious when Bauman opens the probe because it is devoid of oxygen due to the lack of power. Gallagher happily requests that Bauman take them home after she wakes up and takes off her suit while performing CPR. After reviewing the data regarding the insects, Houston sends Bellman a message stating that Gallagher is now regarded as a hero by all people on Earth. Gallagher reveals that he has also brought a rock from Mars as a keepsake for Chantela's granddaughter. Bauman finally gives Gallagher a kiss after noticing how much he has changed, reflecting on the fact that they have 6 months to get to know one another better before returning to Earth.